What would you say are the main contributors to your success?
I guess passion, and looking at what was presently happening in the music market and being unhappy with the way people played music. So that's when I came up with a technique and a system that allowed me to play the areas of the music that I chose to play, and at the same time, looking at music is just music. Like, there's these charts, this chart, that chart, this chart, and it kind of segregates music, and I felt that a great track is a great track, be it pop, rock, jazz, blues, funk, disco, R&B, alternative, Caribbean, I just had to find a way to just connect the dots, make them all work with each other, and that's pretty much what came to be a hip-hop set in the 70s.
What advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
My sisters always tell me I was born with what I do. I came out born doing what I did. But if I were to give advice to somebody, I would say, look at what you see, try to make it yours. Like, there's really nothing totally original under the sun. It's just there's part to this and there's part to this, part to this and part to that. And what you do is you take those various different templates, so to speak, and you combine them in such a way that makes it yours. It makes it your signature, and a lot of times, people that do stuff like that are called inventors. Sometimes you can invent something and say, here, public, and they can say, no. But for me, I guess I was pretty fortunate. It was like, what is that? And how's he doing that? So it definitely beat no.
So what were your passions beyond music?
Electronics, most likely, but electronics and music kind of go together. I would say it all was in the same family.
You said that they're related. How easy was the transition?
Well, it wasn't no transition because you got to have the hardware to play what was called, at that time, the vinyl was the software. So the two kind of came together, but I just, when I was a toddler, I watched my father go to this box in the living room. The red light would turn on and this thing would spin around, and that's where my interest was. So when I became a teenager, is when anything that plugged into a wall, like a hair dryer, wash machine, a stereo, whatever was in the house, and I actually became public enemy number one with my family because whatever I took apart, I always desperately tried to put it back together. And it wasn't until my mother, says, listen, son, I've got to send you to school so that you could understand what it is you're doing. And while you're taking apart these electrical items, you have to know how to put them back together. So that's when I went to, electronic school and learned about, AC, DC, resistors, capacitors, voltages, dividers, diodes. I mean, all the internal things that make up a circuit, that make up an electronic device that you plug in the wall. It's a combination of many, many things. And once I went to school for that was the hardware part, but I had already seen the software part, which was the records with my dad. So putting those two together was kind of like, and then looking at the landscape once again and seeing the way people was playing music and saying to myself, well, the best part was always the part where the drummer had a solo. So let's just look at that pop record and that jazz record, that blues record, that funk record, that R&B record, and the Caribbean record, and alternative. Let's just find these sections and all these different genres of music. And that what the parallel was. And I figured out a way by putting my fingertips on the record and just being able to break and clutch and control the record and take the desired parts of each individual genre of record and make my own stew, my own musical stew. And that's what became the way the world played today. So that was it for me, pretty much.
Were your parents always supportive of where you were going?
They didn't understand where I was going, and like a lot of people, a lot of my best friends didn't really understand why is it that I wanted to dismantle music the way that I wanted to. So I looked at it like an unfinished, like Michelangelo. You can look at it and lots of reds, blues, greens, and all that, but you won't really see what it really is until the painting is actually done. So I kind of went into sort of like my own world for like 3 years and just dismantled the way music was played and says, no, I don't want that there. I want this break to go here, and I want this chorus to go here, and I'm going to break it. And by using duplicate copies, I could take what was there and just kind of rearrange it, and that took a few years to figure out, and people didn't take too kindly of it because I was putting my fingertips on the records and that kind of stuff. But I know what I was thinking, and I know what I wanted to hear. I knew what the end result was, but it was a matter of just painting the picture, and so here we are.
How do you keep that self-belief? How do you keep that?
Because there's so many genres of music to listen to. It's like there's this analogy that a hip hop is just one genre of music, but me being the inventor of it, it's many genres. So I can find a today's pop record that's got an incredible break in it, or a rock, or a jazz, or a blues, or a funk, or a disco, or alternative R&B. I can still find that break because hip hop set in its true sense it derives from the different genres of music. And sometimes I find that break in an American record. I might find it in London. I might find it in Japan or in Australia. So I'm never really bored. That keeps me going because it's always something that I can find, or something that I missed when it was out originally. It's like, oh, this is great. I can fit this in. So it's always something.